One of my favorite stories to tell is about British historian Thomas Carlyle. He lived in the 1800s and had a friend who one time suggested to him that he write a history of the French Revolution. So Carlyle dug into it and did all kinds of research, and when he had the first volume done, he gave it to his friend to have him review it and see what he thought. The friend read the volume and just loved it, recognized right away that it was going to be a classic and was really well done. Unfortunately, he left the volume sitting in his study as he went to do something else, and when the maid came in to light the fire for the evening, she didn't recognize what was sitting on the desk as being something very historic and something very well done. She thought it was garbage. So she picked up this pile of paper and threw it into the fireplace and lit the fire with it. When the friend came home, he dug out what he could, and really all he could save was a portion of the title page. So he took that portion of that title page back to Thomas Carlyle and apologized up and down. He offered to pay for him to redo that volume and felt really poorly about it. Carlyle soothed his friend, told him it was okay, but inwardly he was devastated. He'd destroyed all his notes that he used to create that first volume, so he had to just start again. Thomas Carlyle did start again and produced a work that even today is still considered one of the best historical documents that's ever been produced. He created a classic, even after his first version of it was burned down. One of the cool things about that story is it said that Carlyle kept that scrap of the title page, that burnt scrap, he kept it in his study as a reminder of what he had lost and yet what he was then trying to reproduce. I like that story so much because it reminds me that life isn't easy. You may look around and think there are other people who have things much easier than you do, and maybe they do. But let me remind you of this. Everybody struggles with something. No one is living a perfect life. Everybody has trouble. Every single person. The goal then is not to avoid trouble. You're always going to have trouble. The goal is to deal with it well. My favorite people are those who have gone through hard times and have come out the other side better for it. My favorite people are not those who've had the cushiest life, but generally those who've had to struggle with some things, because struggle grows us up and struggle makes us better. Thomas Carlyle started over and created something wonderful again. And I want to remind you today that you can always start over again. You can always begin again. In fact, that's the entire basis of the gospel message. Jesus came and reminded us that we have sinned and are separated from God, but we can start again. We've got problems, but we can begin again. And you can begin again too, whether that's spiritually or whether that's just where you are now. You can always start over. When the Apostle Paul wrote to the Colossian church, he praised several things for them. One of the things he prays for is this. He prays in verse 11 of chapter 1 of Colossians. He says, I pray that you'd be strengthened with all power according to his glorious might. I pray that you'd be strengthened with all power according to God's might, not your own, so that you may have great endurance and patience. Those two words may sound the same, but they're different. The Greek word for great endurance means endurance with things, with situations, with trouble. That he prays that they would have God's strength to go through their troubles well. And the idea of patience is the idea that you would be patient with people. Endurance refers to things. Patience refers to people. And so he prays that they might have God's strength to not become irritated with one another, to not become upset with one another, but to be patient with one another. What a great lesson to learn. If we can learn today to have endurance with our struggles and patience with one another, if we can rely on God's strength to find those things, if we can start over with him, then our lives can be created into something that's wonderful too. You may have struggles, but you also have hope. As Thanksgiving comes up this weekend, may we be thankful for that blessing.